A student activist at New York's Columbia University has been arrested by federal immigration agents, and Canada will soon swear in a new prime minister. Good morning, I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. A student activist who helped lead pro-Palestinian student protests at Columbia University in New York has been arrested by federal immigration agents. A lawyer for Mahmoud Khalid said he was taken away and his location has not been disclosed. Khalid is a legal permanent resident of the U.S., but was told his green card is being revoked. NPR's Adrian Florido reports this is in line with a vow from President Trump.
In late January, President Trump signed an executive order that he said would be used to go after students who participated in his words, the pro-jihadist protests. It directed federal agencies to work toward deporting international students who participated. The order cited federal law that allows deporting foreign nationals who express support for terrorism. Students have always rejected, the claim that their protests were pro-terrorist or that they supported Hamas's 2023 attack on Israel. They say the protests were for peace in Gaza.
NPR's Adrian Florido reporting. House Republicans are shoring up support for a stopgap government funding bill. It's backed by President Trump. The measure largely keeps the government funded by using last year's budget numbers. House Democrats say they will oppose it. NPR's Susan Davis says Congress only has until the end of the week to pass spending legislation or the government will partially shut down.
The House is expected to vote on Tuesday, and if they can't pass a bill, the shutdown becomes exponentially more likely by Friday. If they can pass that hurdle, a handful of Democrats are still going to be necessary to get it through the Senate. At least one of those Democrats, Pennsylvania's John Fetterman, has indicated he'll be on board. It's unclear if others will be. And Trump is already trying to put the blame on Democrats if there is a shutdown. But I think that's going to be a bit of a hard sell when it's his party that controls all the levers here and have also made clear that Democrats didn't have a seat at the table.
NPR's Susan Davis reporting. President Trump says the reciprocal tariffs he plans to impose next month might just be the beginning. NPR's Tamara Keith reports the president says there could be some pain ahead for the U.S. economy.
Trump made the comments in a sit-down interview on the Fox News program Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time.
He dismissed concerns raised by business leaders that the on-again, off-again tariffs in recent weeks have created uncertainty, saying that's just a talking point. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
The Trump administration's cost-cutting effort is looking at shedding hundreds of federal government buildings. That could include selling them or canceling leases. NPR's Stephen Fowler says this will affect taxpayers.
Almost all of these buildings are actually outside of D.C., and a lot of them provide public services. I mean, think about how many people need to interact with the IRS and Social Security. There are more than 100 buildings on this list from those two agencies. There's also disparate impact on rural areas like the Farm Service Agency and Forest Service within the Agriculture Department, and Interior Department bureaus like the National Parks and the Fish and Wildlife Service.
NPR's Stephen Fowler reporting. Canada will soon swear in a new prime minister. Mark Carney won the race to lead Canada's governing Liberal Party yesterday. Under Canada's parliamentary system, Carney will take over from outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, also a Liberal. But Carney is expected to soon call national elections. In a speech to fellow party members, he identified a threat to Canada's prosperity.
Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed.
President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico last week. Then he gave U.S. automakers a one-month reprieve. The following day, he then suspended most of the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. He kept tariffs of 20% in place on China. The Chinese government hit back today with 10 to 15% tariffs on imports of U.S. agricultural goods. President Trump is predicting, quote, some very big things this week in Saudi Arabia. NPR's Tamara Keith reports that's where U.S. diplomats will meet with Ukrainian officials to discuss a possible end to the war with Russia.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leading the U.S. delegation. Trump, speaking on Air Force One, said he's looking for signs that Ukraine is ready for peace.
I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, but in recent weeks, Trump has blamed Ukraine for the war and feuded with the country's president in the Oval Office with cameras rolling.
You know, I say they don't have the cards. Nobody really has the cards. Russia doesn't have the cards. They don't have. What you have to do is you have to make a deal, and you have to stop the killing.
European leaders have rallied around Ukraine. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Thousands of people rallied in Selma, Alabama this weekend for the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. On that day, peaceful protesters marched for the right to vote and were beaten by state troopers. Troy Public Radio's Emily Mosier reports that yesterday, activists reenacted the peaceful march.
What do we want? Voting rights! When do we want them? Now!
On that first Bloody Sunday in 1965, black protesters marched for the right to vote. 6 decades later, participants are continuing the tradition. Here's Rose Smith from Atlanta.
My ancestors were here before me. They paved the way for me to be here. And I hear them crying from the grave. You belong here.
This weekend, marchers criticized President Donald Trump's recent ban on DEI programs. So did Representative Shamari Figures.
We got to stick together because say whatever you want to about the Republicans and Donald Trump, you cannot call them not unified.
The day concluded with a benefit concert for the National Voting Rights Museum. For NPR News, I'm Emily Mosier in Selma, Alabama.
I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News.